Hello everybody, my name's Michelle, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm here to talk about the Adventure Time miniseries Stakes. For some reason I feel like hardly anybody is talking about the miniseries, but it was really freaking good and I wanted to get my opinions on the interwebs while it was still relevant. General thoughts, really liked it, thought it was really good. It was Marceline centered and Marceline is my favorite character in Adventure Time, so I'm always interested in knowing more about her. And I genuinely thought that these were some of the best episodes that the show has ever put out, and especially in recent years. There was a really beautiful song written by Rebecca Sugar. I did a cover of it. It's like slightly above average. I'll put a link somewhere if you want to watch it. Overall, I would say that I give it like an A-, only because I was hoping to learn a little bit more about Marceline's past, and for some reason I had it in my head that this was going to be like a complete flashback miniseries. Like I thought it was all going to be learning about Marceline's past, but for the most part it took place in the present. So that's just not what I was expecting, and that's no fault of the show. That was just like my expectations ruining it for myself. I honestly feel like they would benefit from doing something like this every year because, kind of like a Steven Bomb, this miniseries, it just gives you the opportunity to get out a lot of information really quickly without it feeling stale and dragged out. Also, the new intro was incredible. I really like this sort of trend that's going on recently with cartoons where if you have some sort of a special event, they like to change up the intro or whatever. It's such a simple thing that gives fans so much joy and excitement, and it just breathes fresh life into the show, and I really appreciate it. And as always, we didn't get the full story of anything. There's always more questions to be asked, because if it's one thing that Adventure Time is good at, it's answering questions with more questions. So now I'm going to briefly go through each of the episodes. Part 1, Marceline comes to Bubblegum saying that she does not want to be a vampire anymore. Bubblegum removes Marceline's vampire essence, and we end off on her about to be burned in the sunlight. Come back, episode 2. She is, of course, not burned because she's no longer a vampire, and we get to see a flashback of Marceline with her mother, who is voiced by Rebecca Sugar, and we get the beautiful song I was talking about earlier, and it was really sweet. Wanted more of it, but you know. We also got to see Simon leaving Marceline, which we knew happened, but we've never seen it before. And we also got to see the recording of what appears to be the video from Holly Jolly Secrets Part 2, which I thought was interesting. Simon also had a really interesting line during that section. He said, "Maybe one day you will find a way to help me, Marceline." And that is foreshadowing if I have ever heard it. And then we get to see her vampire hunting, and we get to see where her powers come from. I thought that was really interesting because a few episodes ago when I was reviewing varmints, I was like, how does her shapeshifting even work? It just seems like it's all willy-nilly. But no, all of her powers are very specific and they have specific reasons for being there, and they're all tied to the souls that she's sucked, you know? We also come across a colony of animal hat humanoid people. You can't help but make the comparison to Finn because Finn wears that hat. We don't really know if that's like some sort of childhood tradition. When we see Finn as a baby, we usually see him with the hat on as well, I think. So he was probably just like abandoned with that hat, and it's all that he's ever known. And are there more people out there? Because the colony sailed away to a different continent, so are there more people? Is that where Martin came from? What's going on with the humans? There was also a great section when they were sitting around the campfire and Marceline started playing the Mr. Belvedere theme song. I thought that was really brilliant considering in Simon and Marcy, he was playing the Cheers theme song. I'm just like, how are these humans keeping human culture alive by playing 80s sitcom themes? That brings us into part 3, which is mainly set up for what the meat of the miniseries is, which is staking all of the vampires and putting them back inside of Marceline. Two really interesting things I got out of this episode. One being that the only power that Marceline has that originated from her father, Hunson Abadir, is the soul sucking. All of her other powers come from the vampires that she has sucked. That came out wrong. And the other interesting thing was the scene in which the Vampire King turned her. That was such a brutal scene. It felt very violating. It felt almost rapish to me. It was intense. I'm surprised that they got away with that. And then in part 4, we learn that there's some sort of history between this Empress vampire and Simon. Maybe he was her slave at some point. It's very unclear about that. But she does say to Marceline, like, he was happier when he was with me, why didn't you just let him stay with me and keep his sanity? So I don't know what's up with that, but I'm really curious to know. I also thought it was quite enjoyable that Simon was having a dream about Lemongrab, apparently. And the Empress, she like drained a couple of Gunters just like it was no big deal. I was like, how did they get away with that? Gunter's a character in this show. They just killed a bunch of Gunters. And then in part 5, our crew is being hunted down by the old-fashioned shape-shifting vampire named Hierophant. I thought it was really clever how they fought Hierophant by Jake turning into a house, which he couldn't enter because he was too old to get with the times or whatever. And I feel like that ties in really well with the whole moral of this miniseries being that everything stays but it still changes. And he refused to change, and as a result, he got burned alive inside of a magical dog. And we end with Marceline being poisoned, and she doesn't have her healing powers, so they gotta go hunt down the healing lady, and that's what the next episode is about. And Jesus Christ, the Moon Lady was freaking absolutely terrifying. I was having flashbacks to Hama from Avatar, the scary witch bloodbender lady. That's exactly what this moon vampire was like. She could like sort of control Finn and Jake and get them to like move out of her way. She had this scary voice and this creepy smile, and she was like, you can't run from me, you're running under my light, and it was just like, ugh. And Marceline, while she's under, she also has this really nice dream about Simon and Betty being together and just her going to visit them, which I thought was really sad but touching. There's also another dream sequence in here where Marceline dreams of her and PB growing old together, which I thought was really, really cute. And also Peppermint Butler is digging a grave outside, so was that grave meant to be for her? I was kind of confused about that, but cool dream sequence. I really like those dream sequences. I also love the part where PB just like busts into the castle and nobody even like bats an eyelash. They're like, oh hey princess, what you want us to do? Next episode is where they gotta take down the Vampire King. Peppermint Butler's a huge fan, of course, and there's this sort of big standoff, which I thought was the funniest fight. I thought it was just really funny the way the Vampire King was acting, like he's like splashing around in a pool saying, take out my vampire essence, and basically just annoying Marceline until she agrees. And again, we have another conversation about how history always repeats itself and everything stays. Marceline also says that she loves Princess Bubblegum in this, just saying. And when the vampire essence is taken out of the Vampire King, he's just a lion. So I'm wondering if the lion is going to come into play in some other way in a further episode. That would be interesting. And then we end with the Vampire King's essence released, creating this big giant blob monster that destroys everything. And then we open up the final episode of the miniseries with Marceline having a sort of identity crisis. She feels like it's all her fault and that she should have never even bothered in the first place, trying to do anything basically. And Simon is the one that kind of snaps her out of her funk, saying like, look, we're survivors, we're like cockroaches, and that sort of inspires her to go out and fight. We get to see Flame Princess and Hot Dog Princess and all the Candy Kingdom fighting together and standing with Bubblegum again, which is really nice. And in the end, Marceline comes back in, sucks up the vampire essence, is reinfected with vampirism, and she sort of just has to deal with that. And I really particularly loved that line at the end where Finn was like, you know, are you okay? I don't want to say sorry for who you are or anything, but like, I just want to make sure you're okay. I thought that that was a really nice way to bridge that subject. It was a really beautiful way of phrasing that. Also, apparently the King of Ooh is just like a sentient ball of wax. Was that already established? Did we know that? I definitely don't remember that ever being said before. That kind of shocked me a little bit, but they moved right past it so quickly. And then at the end, we bring it back to the song and the fact that everything stays the same and that Marceline has the ability to grow up and to change, but she will always be around, and her friends like Bubblegum will always be around for her as well, and everything will eventually come back full circle and stay the same, which a beautiful sentiment, a beautiful miniseries. I really, really liked it, and I would definitely recommend you watch it, especially if you watched this video and spoiled yourself. So yeah, of course, if you have any favorite parts or anything about it that you would like to discuss with me, leave them in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye!